Welcome to the Fantasy Football News for Week 10. I'm Eric. Week 10 saw a few matches with interesting results, and I cannot wait to share them with you. As we enter Week 11, remember that there are only 4 weeks left until the start of the 3-week playoff period. Time to really buckle down and study those rosters and matchups. The top 6 teams will enter the winner's ladder and compete for the top 3 prizes, one of which is the coveted Newhouse Trophy. The remaining 4 teams, along with the losers from the winner's ladder, will compete for the Ryan Leaf Trophy. Good luck, teams. On to the news. Our first matchup this week was Team Marty versus Generic Football Team. After an absolutely brutal 5-game losing streak in weeks 2 through 6, it appeared that Team Marty had turned a corner, winning their next 2, including an impressive showing with the top score in week 8. Unfortunately for Team Marty, a 57-point regression in week 9 and a further 22-point regression here in week 10 put a damper on their winning ways. The Generic Football Team also suffered a 5-game losing streak, but was riding the tails of 2 wins in a row coming into week 10, having had the good fortune to match up with the highest regressor in each of those 2 matches. GFT's good fortune continued in week 10 as they faced the lowest scoring team, as Team Marty managed a meager 71.27 points, despite a 22.42 point performance from Jalen Hurts and a 16.2 point performance from Jets running back Michael Carter. Lamar Jackson and Mark Ingram led the scoring for the GFT as Randy pulls out his 3rd win in a row, defeating Team Marty 97.22 to 71.27. Week 11 will see the GFT face off against the Rebel Scum, and Team Marty takes on Wu-Tang Cash. Matchup number 2 was Wu-Tang Cash versus Washington Fantasy. It's fair to say that Wu-Tang Cash has struggled with consistency after posting 3 straight wins to start the season. Wu-Tang then narrowly avoided a 6-game losing streak with a Week 6 win against Team Scott Scott. Wu-Tang needed a Week 10 win to keep alive any hopes of snagging one of those top 6 slots for the playoffs. Washington Fantasy came into Week 10 on a 2-game winning streak and was hoping that their own woes were behind them. Sitting at the very bottom of the very weak North Division, Washington Fantasy has watched their playoff hopes all but vanish while losing 4 of their last 7. Still relying on old man A.A. Ron Rodgers, Washington Fantasy was unable to capitalize on a standout 26.6 point performance from CeeDee Lamb. On the other side, Patrick Mahomes seemed to finally shake off the funk and hung up a monumental 47.24 point performance to cement Wu-Tang's win in this one, 104.54 to 95.88. Week 11 matchups are Team Marty for Wu-Tang Cash and Team Scott Scott for Washington Fantasy. And now, a musical number. Garbage time. Late in every game, you get a worthless reception, and your team gets more trashy points. Garbage time. Late in every game, Cooper catches more balls, but his team is behind by too many. Garbage time. Late in every game, I get a little bit nervous that all of my team scores have gone by. Garbage time. Late in every game, I get a little bit terrified, and then I see the quarterback's eye. Garbage time receivers. Every now and then they fall apart. Garbage time wide out. Every now and then they fall apart. And I lost the game tonight. And it hurt me more than ever. And if it wasn't for garbage time, I'd be winning on forever. Our next match, Stars and Stripes versus Team Scott Scott. Team Scott Scott was so confident of winning in Week 10 that they did not even bother starting a quarterback in place of the bye week Joe Burrow. Perhaps Team Scott Scott knew that Stephon Diggs and Deebo Samuel were destined for outstanding performances. Perhaps Team Scott Scott was aware that San Francisco's defense would embarrass the Rams' juggernaut. Perhaps Team Scott Scott's management actually has no idea what is going on and just had the universe going their way. We here at Fantasy Football News may never know, but what we do know was that even without a quarterback, they managed an absolutely dominating performance against North Division leader Stars and Stripes. On the Stars and Stripes side, Justin Herbert had a lackluster performance, putting up only 14 points, while 5 of the remaining roster positions posted sub-6-point performances. Team Scott Scott wins this one 122.9 to 82.4. And remember, that's without a starting quarterback. Next week finds Stars and Stripes fighting for the division against Team Deathridger, who I am certain will be starting a quarterback. We just don't know who. While Team Scott hopes to continue their winning ways against Washington Fantasy. Our penultimate matchup this week was Team Deathridger versus the Sandlot Turf Burns. Sandlot Turf Burns have been a hard luck case all season. We have mentioned it here before on the Fantasy Football News. The Turf Burns have faced off against the highest or second highest weekly scorer in 6 of the previous 9 weeks. Team Deathridger came into Week 10 as the hottest team in the league, sitting second in the North Division and riding a 5-game winning streak. Another often talked about subject here at FFN has been the quarterback carousel at Team Deathridger. This week's pick was Tom Brady over Josh Allen. More on that later. The Turf Burns made a bold decision to start Derek Carr over the returning Russell Wilson, and that decision paid dividends as Wilson managed only 5.64 points in the first shutout of his career. Meanwhile, an excellent performance from Jamal Agnew and a healthy Christian McCaffrey helped the Turf Burns reverse the curse and claim the top scorer spot while also beating the second highest scorer, Turf Burns, win it 130.49 to 126.46. Coming up for the Turf Burns is the rebranded Garbage Time, while Team Deathridger looks to take the top spot in the North Division as they battle Stars and Stripes. And of course, we will now get to our weekly $5 contest winner. Our Week 10 contest was longest field goal for a starting kicker. This week's winner was Mike Jordan, as Chris Boswell nailed a 51-yarder as the Steelers tied the Lions. Congratulations, Mike Jordan. Next week's contest will be the most interceptions by a starting defense/special teams unit. Tiebreaker in that one will be least yards allowed. Good luck, everybody. And now, did somebody lay an egg?
Bok, 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 bockity bok. Bok, 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 bockity bok. Bok, bok, bockity bok. Bok, bok, bok. Who laid an egg?
Stars and Stripes lost to a team with no quarterback. Mike laid an egg. As mentioned earlier, Team Deathridger has played quarterback roulette every single week. This week, starting the aging Tom Brady over young stud Josh Allen. And it cost them. Team Deathridger laid an egg.
What are you doing?
Had Washington Fantasy started Tony Pollard and Jacoby Myers over Melvin Gordon and DJ Moore, they would have won. Unfortunately, these types of high-level decisions are beyond the capability of their mediocre manager. Corey laid an egg.
Bok, 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 bockity bok. Bok, 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 bockity bok. Bok, bok, bockity bok. Bok, bok, bok. Who laid an egg?
All right. And on to our final matchup. Rebel Scum versus Any Given Sunday. The annals of fantasy football will never be complete without a chapter on what may be the absolute worst bad beat in the history of the game. Coming into Week 10, Rebel Scum was deep in a skid as they had lost 3 in a row. Quarterback Kyler Murray's absence has definitely been felt as Rebel Scum has scrambled to find a reliable replacement. After Sunday's games, Rebel Scum held a narrow 0.62 point lead over Any Given Sunday, with each team having one player left in the Monday night matchup. George Kittle for the Rebel Scum and Cooper Kupp for Any Given Sunday. Early in the Monday night game, things were looking up for Rebel Scum as Kittle had several receptions and a touchdown as the Niners bullied the Rams. After taking a 31-7 lead into the fourth quarter, however, the Niners went into garbage time coast mode while they allowed the Rams to complete reception after reception to a worthless Cooper Kupp. Any Given Sunday slowly gained hope and by the end of the night had eked out a victory on garbage time receptions, 124.34 to 120.26. Immediately following the match, Any Given Sunday decided on a wholesale team rebrand as they renamed themselves Garbage Time and embraced their dishonorable win. The two top South Division teams both now sit at 6-4, with Rebel Scum holding the tiebreaker with more points for. Moving on to Week 11, we will see Rebel Scum travel to the Generic Stadium to take on the GFT, while Garbage Time will head to the Sandlot to face the Turf Burns. Good luck, Turf Burns. That'll do it for this week's edition of the Fantasy Football News. As stated earlier, the playoffs are approaching, so go out and do your research. Speaking of playoffs, let's take a look at where we stand heading into Week 11. Stars and Stripes and Rebel Scum are currently hanging on to those coveted round 1 bye slots as Team Deathrager, Garbage Time, Team Scott, and Wu-Tang Cash continue to battle for the remaining slots. Any of the remaining teams could make a run and claim one of those slots. Teams on bye for Week 11 are the Rams and Broncos. Double check those rosters and make your moves as appropriate. Another interesting factoid for you all: as of Week 10, each team has faced every other team at least once. Have a great week. Good luck to everybody but Randy. And as always, here at Fantasy Football News, if it wasn't for Garbage Time, we're better than you.